Today we're going to talk about trust, and this is the third part of a three-part series. We are, the first month in January, we talked about wills and the importance of wills. So everybody has put their will in place, right? Oh, good. Last month we talked about the power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorney, financial powers of attorney, all of the paperwork that really tells loved ones what we want and how we want to be treated as we age and or get ill and can't make those wishes known ourselves. This month we're going to talk about trust. Now, when I did this last time, one of the questions that I think came up was, do you need a trust if you have a will or vice versa? So I did a little bit of research on the topic and discovered in the first thing that, we're going to go through some basic information about trust, but we're also going to talk about the revocable trust, which is in fact and can be used as a replacement for a will. And there are some reasons to do it instead of doing a will, so we'll talk about those as well. So why should we put our assets into trust is where we're going to start. It ensures your estate goes to the people that you have chosen. One of the things that happens is that when we die, and pretty much I can guarantee that everybody in this room is going to eventually. It just is. If you manage to live forever, you're going to be incredibly rich. And famous. So, as we get into our final days, if we know they're coming, then we start to think about the things that are important to us and what we would like to pass along and who we would like to pass them along to. Now, we can tell people this is what I want. And we can hear them say, I will honor those wishes. I am here to tell you from personal experience, and most of us have had it, that doesn't work. People, something flips in your brain, I'm telling you, when someone you love passes away. So we need to have those things in writing, and we need to make sure they're taken care of in advance when we are still of sound mind, so that people can't fight over it. Because it doesn't make any sense. And even if you have a will in place, there's still the possibility of arguments ensuing and people saying, well, she would have liked me to have this, or he wanted me to have that, and it isn't what has been decided. And that's the last thing. I don't want, when I pass away, I want a party. I want anybody who actually loved me, could be one or two, maybe, to get together and to celebrate my life. When my brother passed away, one of the things that I told everyone that came to the funeral, I said, this is a no tears funeral. I don't want to see any. We are here because we loved him, which means that we are so blessed to have had him in our life that we want to celebrate what he gave us, not what we're going to miss. And that's the way I want my passing to be. I don't want people arguing if I happen to have some stuff. So we want that all in writing. You can put conditions on how and when your assets are distributed after you die, which means that if you have grandchildren, or if you have great-grandchildren, or there is organization that you want to give part of your estate to, you can control when they get it and how much they get it. So you could say, my grandchildren don't get it until they're grown up, which could be, what do we think, 50? You can limit that to, if you just put it into a trust for them, they will get it when they're 18. Or depending on the trust, they could get it when they're 21. I don't know about all of you at 18, but I wasn't grown up enough that if I would have gotten any kind of chunk of money, it would have been gone. And I've heard many stories of people. So you can actually control that kind of stuff with a trust, which is kind of nice. And keep in mind that you don't have to have a lot to have a trust. You know, we think about trusts as being for rich people. You know, you've got $1 million in the bank and you need to divide it up, and that isn't true at all. We'll get to that too in a little bit. You'll also reduce estate and gift taxes if you have a trust. It'll distribute assets to heirs efficiently without cost, delay, and publicity of probate. Wills are public knowledge, so if you want what you give away to be private with nobody knowing, then you want to do it in a trust instead of a will, just in case somebody decides, because filling out the proper paperwork, someone can get anybody's will that they want, which actually surprised me to find that out. I thought it was more private than that. Keep in mind that if your assets end up in probate because there are disagreements on how your things should be distributed, probate costs can be 5 to 7% of your estate. Now, if you only have $100, that's $5 or $7. That's $5 or $7. If you have $1 million, it's 5,000. No, 100,000 is 5,000 to 7,000. I mean, it keeps, you know, $1 million is 50 to 70,000. That's money that can be spent in a way that you want it spent. And it's probably not on probate. Does anybody here want to give 7% of their assets to probate, to court, and attorneys? Probably not. So let's avoid doing that. It protects your assets from creditors and lawsuits. If you have a life insurance policy, life insurance policies are automatically protected. No matter how big the life insurance policy is, what kind of debt you left behind. If it's a house and it's a joint ownership, you know, my husband and I own our home together, his life insurance will not protect me from losing my house. It's not as if I can wipe out that debt. Wouldn't that be nice? That'd be really nice. But if there are debts that are outside of that, then life insurance, even the IRS can't touch a life insurance policy. Can't do it. So those things are protected. It doesn't mean that those don't need to be paid, because any debts that you have while you are married are, I mean, you are both responsible for them, but they can't just take a chunk of that money, which is pretty nice. But a trust goes beyond that and protects some of your other assets from lawsuits and from garnishment or somebody outright taking them, which is kind of nice. You name a successor trustee, who you also do with your wills and all your powers of attorney, manages your trust after you die. Here's the cool thing about trusts, is that trusts live forever or until you put an end to it. So one of the reasons they're better than wills, and they're better protected from probate than wills are, is because they don't die. And wills die when you die. Where a trust, because you've named a successor and set it up, the trust continues to live after you pass away. That is why it's better protected, and it protects your assets better than a will does, which I thought was pretty interesting to learn that. The rule of thumb of why you need a trust: it's a really useful estate planning tool. What this particular information gave me is, if you have $100,000 or more in assets, a trust becomes very worthwhile. I think that anyone can set up a trust. It is something, I looked for the forms, you know, last month I came with like a stack of forms for everybody. I looked for some forms, and there's actually some spots on the internet where they will help you do them, and you go in and you start filling it out while it's there. I would not do that because it's a little bit too public for me, because anything that you ever put on the internet never dies. It lives forever, doesn't it, Josh? So That isn't something I would fill out online. So a trust is something you would want an attorney for. It also is a good idea because attorneys who specialize in wills and trusts, that's why they make their money, is because they know what they're doing and they're going to be able to help you guide. So I don't know that the 100,000 is a good benchmark. I mean, we can feel pretty poor, but if we own a home and if we own a fairly average home and it's paid off, you have $100,000. I mean, you are worth that. So when you start adding up wedding jewelry, which we probably want to leave to specific people, when you start adding up any antiques you have in your house, your furniture, your home, any assets that you have from retirement plans to anything, it's pretty easy to add up to $100,000 in assets. So I don't know that a trust is something that any of us should rule out. My mother-in-law probably doesn't need a trust. She has no money in the bank. You know, she lives on Social Security. And there isn't anything there. She has given away anything of value to whatever kids she wanted to get it, because in her words, 4 of my kids are going to fight over every last knife in the drawer, and the sharp ones are probably going to be used as weapons. So she has, in preparation for this, because she's pretty pragmatic. I'm going to die one of these days. I just am. She has started taking care of all of this before she passes away to make sure that her stuff goes where she wants it to go. If she still was hanging on to that, then a trust for her would probably be a good idea, even though she's worth less than $100,000, because it would have divided the assets the way she wanted them divided. So if you have a sizable amount of your assets in real estate, business, art collection, antiques, jewelry, anything like that, a trust is a good idea. If you want to leave your estate to your heirs in a way that's not directly and immediately payable to them upon their death, again, we're talking about people that we know that would not spend the money as wisely. I mean, there are things that I will do. I will pay for college educations with a trust. If you get a grade point average that I ask for. I will pay for any further education. I will put down payments on home. I will do all of these kinds of things with a trust so that the money is spent in a way that I believe in my heart is best for the person I'm leaving it to. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. If you want to support your surviving spouse, but also want to ensure that the principal or remainder of your estate goes to your chosen heirs, it's a good idea to have a trust. My husband and I are like many, many couples in that I take care of all of the finances and he takes care of spending. Nobody here has anybody like that, do they? No. It's just the way it is. There are very few houses that either both spend all the money or both are financially responsible. I know a couple, he's the one that does all of the finances and is very frugal. She's the one that overspends. And I love her to death because she said she's the one that told me I'm the spender and I need to get it under control and be more like my husband and get on board with him. Wow, am I proud of you. Because most people, if you ask my husband, he goes, I'm very frugal with my money. He is a whole lot more frugal than he used to be. I will give him that. So, would I want him to be able to get my entire life insurance policy at once? No. Because I would set aside he doesn't have any idea how to pay a bill. I mean, he doesn't have any idea who our mortgage is with. He doesn't want to have anything to do with that. So I need to make sure that all of the bills are paid to the best of my ability and he has enough money left over to do the things that he wants to do. Because I want to take care of him. If he outlives me, I want to make sure that he is taken care of and that the bills are paid for him. Because he's going to have a hard enough time learning how to do laundry. and ironing. And he's going to have to take care of my horses. And I'm not talking down. He's a great guy. I am blessed to have him in my life. But he is who he is. So I need to make steps. And it would be silly of me to say that if something happens to me, he's going to have the wherewithal to find somebody to be able to tell him who our mortgage is with so he can make the payment. Because he's going to be missing me. No matter what he says, he will. And you know, he's going to be in his own. I just read something on grief yesterday that said that if we're dealing with someone that we care about that is going through grief, one of the worst things we can do to them is expect them to have any ability to have logic or to think about anything but what their emotions are going through. It's unfair because they're literally, if they've lost somebody they love, they're not sane at that particular moment in time. So I want to make sure that those who love me, that I give part of my estate to, are taken care of. It's a responsibility. I assign someone to pay the bills, which I did. You know, many years ago, I talked to my CPA and I said, if I die before John does, I need you to make sure that not only the taxes are done, and at that time I had my own business that would have needed to be liquidated, but I need you to make sure that the bills are paid because I'm telling you that John isn't going to be able to do that. And he just looked at me. He is a CPA. So, you know, he's a financial wizard. I said, he is not the person who is going to be able to do that, and I'm going to need. So I can set that up in advance. Have a seat. Let me move my stuff. There's a handout. We're on page 4. Oh, is it paragraph 4? There's only 3 pages. Yeah. So you want to think about that. And I can set up a trust to do that for as long as my money lasts. I mean, there isn't a problem with that. So you have a disabled relative whom you would like to provide for without disqualifying him or her from Medicare or other government assistance. I have a friend who is in her mid-50s who has a 25-year-old son who is 100% disabled. He cannot speak. I mean, he can walk, but he is in diapers for life and he cannot speak, and he is the light of her life. She does not want him to end up in a state home because she doesn't have faith that he'll be taken care of to her expectations. There is, if we know of someone who is in this situation, there is a website, and it's not in your paperwork. It's called wispact.org, WISPACT.org, that will help you free of charge set up a trust specifically to take care of a disabled person. You have to name the disabled person, and the person has to be disabled to the point of qualifying for Social Security disability, which doesn't take a whole lot, by the way. So that is a great way for those of us that know people that have handicapped relatives that they want to take care of. That is a great way to make sure that they are taken care of to your expectations. Any questions so far? Yes? Mm-hmm.
But you do have some property.
Mm-hmm.
Can you put that in trust so the government will not touch you?
Yes.
I mean, because I'm in that process right now, and people are helping me. I ain't got a lawyer, and they don't know, but I can put, like I got some property, I can put it in a trust to somebody, and the government will not get repaid.
And I say again, I love you guys. Now we'll come back with new information next month. If you're on Medicare, all of your assets are protected. Medicaid, works a little bit differently, because Medicaid will work on your income to take care of you, but they do that, they make you liquidate anything over X amount of money that you have in assets or a home or whatever, car. I mean, if you're a single person and you go on Medicaid and you have 3 cars, they're probably going to make you get rid of 2 of them. And they're going to make you get rid of the one that's worth the most amount of money. Just saying. That old 1953 Corvette's going to have to go. They can, in some instances, take a portion of the proceeds from the sale of your assets when you die. That's the way Medicaid works. Whether they do or not, I'm not sure. The laws changed. The laws just changed, I think, the beginning of 2014. And I'm not up on exactly what they are. So I'll research that a little bit for you next month. But that is a possibility. And the government, or part of it, and the government can pretty much, except for life insurance policies, they can pretty much take whatever it is that you have. So keep that in mind. I mean, it's just the way it works. And, you know, whether or not we think it's fair or right, I guess doesn't make any difference. And we're going to get to revocable trusts and irrevocable trusts here in just a minute, because I think when we're talking about government assistance, that's a really important point to get to. Any other questions before we go on? Okay. The types of trusts, there are 5 standard types of trusts. And the first one is a credit shelter trust. It's called a bypass or a family trust. You write a will bequeathing an amount to the trust, but not exceeding the estate tax exemption. Just in case you want to know what that is, the estate tax exemption is $5,250,000. As of January 1st, 2014, that's what it was. There are people, I'm not one of them, that actually exceed that. So you're going to want to make sure that you can put that all in a credit shelter. It makes sure that everything goes tax-free to whoever it is that you want it to go to. I mean, you can put up to the limit into a tax shelter trust. Your spouse lives off the remainder of your estate, and then the trust itself supports whatever it is that you want to support afterwards. So, and keep in mind that with these kinds of trusts and with death and estates, that spouses automatically get X amount of money without having to pay estate taxes. They just assume that if you're married, you own everything half and half. Okay? Once money is placed in a bypass trust, it is forever free of estate tax, even if it grows, which is pretty cool. So if you have a ton of cash, this might be something. And we aren't limited to one trust. We can do several trusts, or trusts in several names, which is, we can do one trust with a bunch of beneficiaries. We can do several trusts. We can do different kinds of trusts. It all depends on what you have for assets and where you want it to go and how you want it dispensed. Okay? Any questions about that? We're going to spend most of our time on revocable and irrevocable, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. Yes?
When you set up a trust, you have a beneficiary on the trust when you first set it up, and that beneficiary dies before you do.
That's why you want a secondary.
Secondary that person's would go to. Because
Yes.
if you didn't have a secondary, then it would say if you had 2 beneficiaries on the initial trust, one dies before you do. If you didn't change it, it would all go to the one person. Right?
Yes.
But if you had a secondary for number 2 person, half would go to number 1 person and half would go to the beneficiary of the number 2 person.
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly correct. If you have 5 children and you're leaving them $1 million, and you leave each one $200,000, if one of them dies before you do, each one now gets $250,000 because you have 4 left. Unless you say that any surviving children or surviving spouse of my child would get it. Excellent point. Yes. Okay, Generationskipping Trust. This is kind of a cool thing. I actually read about a guy that did this, and he was left a huge, humongous, out of this world amount of money. And it was really important to him to make sure that his children made their own way in life. So he left them a very small amount of money. Something wrong with yours? Yeah. You have two, oh, try this one instead. We're on page 4. We need to let the sun is shining. It's springtime. Last month when we were here, it was what, 157 degrees below zero? It was like this morning, I'm out walking down here this morning and it's 35 degrees and it feels good. Yeah. Generation-skipping trust. If you want to skip a generation for any reason, like I was saying, I read about this guy. He literally could put it off 3 generations, and that was the furthest he could put it off. It was an irrevocable trust, so it could never be changed, which meant that he got what he wanted for his children, which was for them to make their own way and to be responsible for their own life. So you can do those kinds of things. You can literally skip a generation, so you can take care of, let's say your kids are 60s, mid-60s, they're set in life, they don't need any money that you leave them, they don't want any money that you leave them. You could pay for your grandchildren's education with a generation-skipping trust if you want to. Trusts just have a wonderful advantage of really being able to distinguish between who gets what and how they get it and when they get it better than a will does, which we talked about back in January. We talked about wills being able to do that. Trusts do a little bit better job, a little bit more complete job. A qualified personal residence trust removes the value of your home or vacation dwelling from your estate, and particularly useful if your house is likely to appreciate in value. You set something up, it doesn't get counted in your total estate. Most years, our real estate appreciates. So if we own a home, it's going to be worth more and more money over time. So you can set up something that that removes that from the amount of your estate. If there's any estate taxes or probate charges or whatever. The IRS assumes your home is worth less than its present day value since your kids won't take possession of it for several years. Isn't that nice? The IRS actually thinks it's going to be worth less. Cool. You got to stop me if you have any questions on this. There's a catch to this. If you don't outlive the trust, and trusts can be alive for X amount of years after your passing or just X amount of years. Full market value of your house at the time of your death will be counted in your estate. So you want to make sure, I want to make sure that any trust I set up is set up for longer than I plan to live. I'm going to be 97 when I fall over from massive heart attack into my manure, right? My manure cart. What did I do to you gals? The second one I gave you was missing a page too?
No, mine was. But she had 2.
There wasn't enough caffeine in me when I did that, I guess. So one of the things that you want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that you do not outlive your trust. You want to make sure that that money is set aside for far longer than you live, assuming that none of us are probably going to make it to 150. I mean, I could set up, I'm 51, I could set up a 100-year trust and pretty much guarantee that the trust is going to live longer than I am. And you can set up, you can set up trusts that live forever as well, which is kind of nice. Irrevocable life insurance trusts are next. The life insurance part of this trust. Where's my revocable trust? I think I'm missing page 4. All right, folks, there really wasn't a page 4. I wasn't that blurry-eyed when I did that this morning. Here are the last two that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about irrevocable trusts, and we're going to talk about revocable trusts. And it's probably going to blend in a little bit. Irrevocable means that once you set it up, no one can ever change it, including you. That's an irrevocable trust. Once you finish it and sign it, it can never be changed. So if you're going to set up an irrevocable trust, you need to make sure that you're never going to change your mind. Okay?
The other person will never die? Did you put down? That's a problem, huh?
It would be secondary and tertiary. You know, usually you'll set it up as generational, or you'll set it up for organizations that you know are going to be around forever, something like that. Just keep in mind that if you ever change your mind, you don't get to change an irrevocable trust. Okay? They're nice if you want to really protect what you've got going. I think that they can be great funding tools. Would I put my entire estate into an irrevocable trust? No. Would I put some of it into an irrevocable trust? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I am that sure of some of the places. You know, my horses, when it comes to their care, that's a given. Could I put that into an irrevocable trust? Absolutely. Can't ever be changed. If I have horses, they need to have care. They need to all stay together. That's one of the rules. And there needs to be board, and there needs to be food, and all of that kind of stuff taken out of there. That could be put into an irrevocable trust. As far as leaving people part of my estate, that I would not do in an irrevocable trust. Just because things change, people pass away, they move, you leave, you have a wonderful daughter who is the most responsible person in the entire world, and she starts using heroin, and you can't change an irrevocable trust to make sure she's taken care of, or that she doesn't get the lump of sum all at once. So, I mean, those are just kinds of things that we need to, us humans are just, I mean, the only thing that is consistent about us is that we are inconsistent. Revocable trusts, or living trusts, which they are also called, is, yeah, this is, she's got page 4 going. She flipped over the last page and she's making notes. Revocable trusts can be changed. They're often called living trusts, which means that while we are alive, we set up a trust where all of our assets go upon our death. We still have control of it. Okay? So if we need to take money out for living expenses, we can. If we want to change who the beneficiaries are, we can. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. I would not put life insurance into a living trust unless you don't have a clear-cut beneficiary for the life insurance, because that's just kind of its own little animal. But revocable trusts are nice. The challenge when I talk to people about trusts, many people are under the assumption that if you put all of your assets into a living trust, the government can't take the money, okay? If you want to go on Medicaid, and Medicare does not, that isn't asset-based. Medicaid is, we all know that. And that isn't the way that works, because you are still in control of your money. You have the trust set up, you have the beneficiaries, you have somebody to take care of the money. Living trusts are great to put our assets into when we are well enough that we want to have control over the money, because we want to go on vacations and we want to be able to buy Christmas presents for the grandkids. We want to do whatever we want to do. But there is someone that is set aside as secondary trustee, that if we become incapacitated before we pass away and need someone to take care of our money because we just can't anymore, then that's the living trust. Our trustee would kick in, make sure our bills are paid, Okay? Make sure that everything is taken, so it would make sure that my husband is taken care of. And it would do everything. I mean, it would do all of that if I'm incapacitated, and then once I die, it just automatically passes through to the trust. One of the misconceptions is, and I want to be really clear on this. One of the misconceptions is that if we have a living trust and if we assign all of our assets to the trust, that as we become unable to take care of ourselves, Medicaid is going to kick in, government subsidies are going to kick in, and they can't touch a living trust. Not true. They can. Because with the living trust, we are still in control of our money. It is still considered our money, and it goes to all of the Medicaid limits as far as what our estate can be worth before they start to make us liquidate for things like nursing home care. Okay? With irrevocable trusts, because you no longer have any control over your money and they can't ever be changed, that's an entirely different deal. And those trusts cannot be taken by the government to subsidize your care as you become unable to care for yourself. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, I've talked to people who have said, oh, no. So I did a little research, and I pulled out about 5 pages of information, put it in front of him and said, this is law. This is the way this, and he had a living trust set up and he thought he was protected. So I said, no, you need long-term care insurance because that's going to take care of, that's going to enable anyone who is going to take care of you and make sure that your wishes are carried out to be able to put you in any nursing home that you want and whatever, because we want the best. I mean, we want the best care for ourselves. If I'm not able to get up and walk around and yell at people, I want somebody to take care of me as if they actually care, don't we? But a living trust is not going to control your money and keep your assets out of the hands of the government. So you want to keep that in mind. They're nice to have because I want to make sure that if I can no longer pay my own bills or clean my own house, I don't do that anyway, take care of my own horses, then my living trust has somebody set up that'll do all of that for me. So that's nice. But I have to remember that that all goes into the estate. It's still a trust, so it's still protected from estate taxes, and it still can live beyond my passing away, but it doesn't protect my assets from the government. Okay, any questions on that?
The cost of providing those services, paying your bills and making those arrangements, those costs come out of the, is it like a percentage of the trust or something? Or is that,
Depends on who you have set up to do it. If you have a child set up, they're probably not going to charge you. This would be a tongue-in-cheek. If you have an organization, do it, that works for you for free. But if you have an attorney do it, or if my CPA had to do it, then there would be a charge, and that could come out of the trust. Okay, and that would need to be something that was agreed upon before, because you don't want any surprises. You don't want, after you need to be taken care of and can no longer holler on your own behalf, you don't want any surprises. You don't want suddenly somebody to say, oh, we need 50% in order, you know what I mean? And there are some people, unfortunately, that would take advantage of that. And then you need somebody who's going to, the reason that we have 3 branches of our government is so that they can oversee each other, and hopefully checks and balances is what it's called. Same deal when it comes to things like trusts and powers of attorney that are going to look after my health if I can't, or after my finances if I can't. Setting up a checks and balances system just keeps, my husband says, it keeps honest people honest. It's why we lock our doors, he says. It keeps honest people honest. So I want the same kinds of things set up with my estate. Just the checks and balances doesn't hurt anybody. It keeps everybody, you know, so the CPA to do the taxes for my trust keeps my trustee focused on doing the right thing because he knows he's going to get caught at the end. Okay? Okay? That is, I want to open this up for questions. We always go a little bit long, and all of us are living on a schedule, so I really want to be able to answer any questions that you have. Yes?
Is it wise to give a copy of your trust to your assigned trustees?
Before you assign a trustee, you need to talk to them and ask them if that's okay. Then they get a copy of the trust. I would. I want them to know what they're in for. I think. Huh? Oh, absolutely, yes. Yes. Uh-huh.
Review your trust every so many years?
Once every year? I think everything needs to be reviewed. I think everything we have, from wills to powers of attorney to trusts to our estate to our investments, that all needs to be reviewed once every 12 months. So you can either postpone it and procrastinate, not that I ever do, and do it all at once, one time a year, or you can set it up to do it several times a year and do different things, which is probably what I would think would be the wisest, because then it allows me throughout the year, because we all have, there are just huge changes that happen to us, and it doesn't take much. So putting everything as a January 5th kind of deal, when in July I have a family member die or I get very ill, I mean, that just kind of, yes, to answer your question the long way. Yes?
You may have mentioned this earlier, but where is this trust? Where do the people get, where do I get money from the revocable trust?
From whoever the trustee is.
Okay.
Does that make sense, or did I not get your question correctly?
So the trustee has that money in a bank or insurance or where?
Or in
Or in their mattress?
mattress, not a good idea. I know an old farmer, and I doubt, I want to go, and a metal detector isn't going to work because he was way too smart. He was worth millions, and it was all hidden all over his farm. His son bought the farm. I will just about guarantee you his son will never find it all. Just won't. Nobody knew where all of it was. His girlfriend knew where some of it was. So what happens is we turn the money over to a financial institution. We turn it over to a financial planner who invests it, however, whether it's annuities with a company or whoever we want to do it. And then the trustee then has the ability to go to whoever is holding, investing your money to get whatever it is that they need to take care of whatever it is that you have decided you want.
So it may or may not be liquid if it's in investments.
It depends on how you set up the trust. If I want people to have access to my money immediately if they need it, it needs to be liquid. If I want my horses taken care of, they don't need 10 years of board and care liquid. They don't. So I could layer it. And layering investments is always a good idea, from my little trash can that holds my dollars all the way up to investments. I could layer it so that I had, 1 year of care plus 10% or 25% for extras set aside in liquid in a money market account or a savings account. And then I could do CDs and I could do annuities that come to fruition in 3 years, and I could do some investments, and I could do whatever I wanted to with the money to make sure if I invest, let's say I figure, I don't know, India's 11. I have a 30-year-old horse. So let's say they all live to 30. Indy's got 20 years of care I would need to provide for. So if I put it all into a savings account or a checking account, it's not going to make any money, but I can get the money to stretch further if, say, I did an annuity that matured in 15 years, they're going to get a better interest rate. That answer your question? You had one.
So the copy of all these documents should be kept in a couple of places, like safe deposit box in your home and maybe another one somewhere else, or where should the copy of these documents be? At your lawyers who kind of write it? Or?
Yes, yes, and yes. One needs to stay at home with you, and it needs to be accessible, so it's in my file drawer. One needs to be at the lawyer's office, and they're going to keep a copy anyway because they're the ones that did it. One needs to go into a safe deposit box. One needs to be with my trustee. Or, my beneficiaries don't need a copy of it. They don't need to know that when I pass away, they're going to get X amount of money. They just don't. I mean, murder, no. Not that anyone would kill me, but they don't need to know that kind of thing. It's enough if they say, well, what am I going to get? To know that you can change your will and give them less. Anyway, but whoever I have that's set aside to take care of it, I want to make sure that they have a copy of it as well, so that when I pass away, they know where it is and they can pull it out immediately, and it takes care of any of my wishes. If I have more than one trust, or if I have a will and I have a trust and I have a healthcare power of attorney and a financial power of attorney, John would be my healthcare power of attorney in a heartbeat. I'm married to him. He knows me. We've talked enough about it. He knows what I want. He needs the healthcare power of attorney to offset anyone else that comes in and says, this is not what you want, right? And she needs it because doctors don't have to listen to him. That's why John needs that, and because John would take care of me. Financial power of attorney, I would choose someone else. A trustee for a trust, I would choose someone else. Because John is sick and because the chances are I will outlive him, I'm going to want to make sure that someone else is chosen. I also would never put the same person in charge of everything. It's too much. Remember that when people we love die, we lose our heads. So I need to make sure that there is enough people around that everybody's kind of part of it, and it makes the people who love us, like kids or grandkids or whoever, it makes them feel as if they're part of the entire process, and that is important to people.